You've seen the parades, the missiles, the headlines claiming China's military is unstoppable. But what if I told you the dragon cracked badly the very first time it faced real combat? In a forgotten UN mission far from Beijing, China's highly trained troops were tested. And what happened next? It wasn't just a collapse. It was a global embarrassment no one talks about. This isn't a theory. This is the story of China's first major military failure. A peacekeeping mission turned disaster, with lives lost, billions wasted, and trust shattered. Why did it happen? What went wrong? And most importantly, what does it reveal about China's true military readiness? Stick around, because once you know this story, you'll never see China's power the same way again. For all the jaw-dropping parades, satellite launches, and polished propaganda, there's one thing the Chinese military desperately lacks: combat experience. Imagine pouring billions into a sports team that never actually plays a real game. That's essentially what the People's Liberation Army is facing. Despite China's booming global influence and increasing military budget, its troops haven't truly tasted battle since the Vietnam debacle in 1979, and that ended in retreat. They're training for war on paper, but the real battlefield tells a different story. This lack of real-world exposure casts a long shadow over their ambitious peacekeeping roles. You can buy the gear, drill the formations, and talk the talk, but when bullets fly, will they stand or stumble? History offered a telling preview of that answer in a place far from Beijing, South Sudan. In a country torn by civil war, what followed would shake the world's faith in China's military backbone. If this kind of insight fascinates you, hit that like button and subscribe right now, because this is only the beginning. In 2015, China deployed 700 troops to Juba, a volatile capital city in South Sudan, under a UN mission mandate. The goal? Peacekeeping. The outcome? A tragic misstep. As civil war violence surged, those Chinese troops, trained but untested, found themselves in the eye of a storm. It was no longer about patrols and speeches. It was about protecting real people in real chaos. But when the fighting erupted, something alarming happened. Instead of stepping up, the Chinese military stepped back. The mission faltered, the lines broke, and the image of China as a rising military power started to crack. With civilians at risk and other peacekeepers confused, the Juba disaster went down as a textbook example of what happens when things were about to get worse. Just 30 kilometers from India's Arunachal Pradesh, China is building a dam so colossal, almost feels like science fiction. 60,000 megawatts of raw hydropower. It's being constructed on the Yarlung Sampa, which becomes the Brahmaputra downstream. Think about the leverage this gives China. With one dam, it can disrupt agriculture, drinking water, and flood control for millions. That's not just engineering, that's strategic dominance. This isn't about energy efficiency, it's about establishing control. The downstream impact on both India and Bangladesh could be catastrophic if water is withheld or released suddenly. Drought in one season, floods in the next. It's a geopolitical tightrope. China's infrastructure allows it to dictate rhythms of life far beyond its borders. But that was just the blueprint. Watch what happens when strategy meets retaliation. Back in 2017, when India stepped into Doklam to block Chinese military expansion, something subtle but far more powerful happened. China retaliated, not with bullets, but by cutting off hydrological data. The result? Entire districts in Assam were blindsided by unexpected floods. This wasn't random. It was a clear signal. Mess with us, and we'll weaponize your rivers. This is water weaponization in its most sophisticated form. No formal declaration, just a sharp, silent blow to regional stability. It's a masterstroke in modern geopolitics, and one most people never see coming. And it raises a haunting question. If they did it once to make a point, what would they do in a full-blown crisis? If this makes you see rivers in a whole new light, good. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and stay close because we're just getting started with how deep this strategy truly flows. India didn't just watch and wait. In response to China's growing control, it launched its own hydropower counter-strategy. The construction of an 11,000 megawatts plant, along with several smaller dams, is not just about power. It's about protection. These projects aim to regulate water flow in vulnerable northeastern regions, creating buffers against sudden floods or droughts triggered upstream. But India's move isn't just technical, it's political. By asserting its own command over the Brahmaputra, it's sending a message: we won't be passive players. India's move isn't just technical, it's political. By asserting its own command over the Brahmaputra, it's sending a message: we won't be passive players. This marks a significant shift in geopolitical posture, where infrastructure becomes deterrence. It's about building resilience against the unpredictable, and when your upstream neighbor is China, unpredictability is guaranteed. Still, that's just one part of the broader regional tension. China isn't known for letting embarrassment go unaddressed. Following the Juba battle, sweeping reforms were set into motion. In 2017, the Chinese government restructured its military for better coordination and quicker decision-making. The PLA started moving from ceremonial grandeur to tactical readiness, at least on the surface. Over 50,000 troops have since been sent to 24 different UN missions. But here's the kicker. Even with growing peacekeeping presence, doubts remain. Is this evolution about global responsibility or optics? China wants to be a player on the world stage. Yet, it still has to prove that its troops can perform when the playbook burns. And the more you look at it, the more you see another layer behind this military strategy, one that's tied not to ideals, but to profits. Behind every soldier China sends to South Sudan, there's a shadow cast by oil interests. China isn't just there to keep the peace. It's also the country's biggest energy partner. In fact, Chinese firms own the majority of South Sudan's oil production. So while troops guard villages, Chinese businesses drill beneath them. Can that really be called peacekeeping? Worse, China has also sold weapons to both sides of the civil war. That means Chinese arms could be firing at Chinese troops. Let that sink in. This double role, as both peacekeeper and arms supplier, reveals a contradiction that undermines any claim of moral leadership. It's not just a UN mission, it's a geopolitical gamble. And China's not the only player rethinking how power is projected globally. Instead of chasing traditional wars, China is hedging its bets. It's investing in foreign bases like Djibouti, running joint military drills with Russia, and sharpening its focus on Taiwan scenarios. The strategy? Diversify. If real combat experience is scarce, then simulation, alliance building, and positioning become the next best thing. It's chess, not boxing. But here's the catch. Simulations don't bleed. You can rehearse forever, but until you're tested in fire, confidence is a mask. And as history has shown, from the Juba disaster to Afghanistan, nations that avoid hard truths tend to trip when it matters most. China's sidestepping the ring for now, but the bell hasn't stopped ringing. And there's one more force it can't sidestep forever. Let's be honest, the UN peacekeeping system isn't built to win wars. It's built to slow them down. Strict rules of engagement, weak armaments, and overlapping leadership often leave troops powerless in the face of chaos. That's why missions in Rwanda, Bosnia, and South Sudan share a tragic link. They couldn't act when it mattered most. Paper mandates don't stop bullets. In Juba, the system failed from the top down, and the Chinese military, still green and cautious, cracked under pressure. It wasn't just about inexperience, it was about institutional handcuffs. The deeper issue? Peacekeeping itself might be broken. And that realization doesn't just affect China. It shifts the ground under every nation betting on stability without strength. Now that you've seen what really happened in Juba, don't you feel like you just unlocked something 99% of people have no clue about? That's the power of hidden history. It's not in the headlines, but it's exactly the kind of truth that makes you smarter, sharper, and more aware of how the world really works. Most people only see the show you just saw behind the curtain. So what do you think? Should we really trust headlines about rising superpowers when their first combat test ends in retreat? Do peacekeeping missions protect civilians or protect national interests? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm reading them all. And if you enjoyed learning something most never will, hit subscribe and turn on the notifications. Because this is just the beginning of the knowledge that builds empires.